Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is Friday, December 4th, 2015, and I'm interviewing Austin Kenyon for the Cowboys in Every County interview series, sponsored by the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Mr. Kenyon, you got your undergraduate degree from OSU, eventually taught a couple of years in the horticulture department for the school, but spent a large part of your career in differing capacities with Greenleaf Nurseries. I look forward to learning more about your life and career and your OSU memories. Thank you for speaking with me. When and where were you born?
I was born on January the 9th, 1939 in Oklahoma City.
In Oklahoma City. What did your parents do for a living?
My father was in agriculture and the nursery business and in irrigation business, both in Oklahoma City and in the little community of Dover in Kingfisher County.
So you've been around the nursery business sort of from day one?
About the third generation. My grandfather was in the nursery business and my dad and uncles, and then because of that I majored in horticulture at Oklahoma State.
Right. Any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother who's deceased and a sister who lives in Kingfisher, and she and her husband have been wheat farmers forever.
And how about your mom? What did she do for a living?
My mother was a mother. She she worked in the business with my dad. She kept the books and did the thing, but she was primarily raised the three kids.
Okay. What activities did you do for fun?
For fun?
Yes, when you were young.
That's a long list. It's almost everything.
Sort of school age.
Yeah, when I was younger, we of course hunted and fished and rode a lot of horses and did a lot of camping along the Cimarron River. And then I was very active in basketball and baseball at Dover. Dover was a small high school, so we didn't have football, so we played baseball in the fall and basketball in the winter and baseball again in the spring.
Did you have duties at the nursery? What were they?
Yeah, I worked at my dad's nursery since I was 12.
Okay, but younger than that, they didn't put you to work. What were your favorite subjects in school?
Science, horticulture. I mean, I learned a lot at Oklahoma State, which allowed me to be very successful in the nursery business. And I took, I guess you'd say, the whole cost gamut of your science courses, botany and agronomy and horticulture and all those chemistry and studying the soils and nutrition and all that.
Wow, that's a good blend. As a youngster, were there any particular plants that your father grew that you were especially interested in?
Well, yeah, probably junipers, upright junipers, because my dad was a very talented horticulturist in his own right, and he made a lot of selections of different junipers, and there still are some of the junipers that are grown in the trade now that he developed.
I see. And were they specially tailored kind of for the for that part of the state?
Well, for that part of the junipers are primarily are hardier plants, and they grow from here clear up to Minnesota.
Right.
And he was selecting either a unique shape or unique color or a combination of the two. But there was one called Kenyon 9, there was one called Dewdrop, and there's a lot of the species of Scopulorum junipers.
Oh, and one named after the family that's still around. That's cool. Well, how about in high school? Just did you do any sports at all? What were some of your activities? You were still focused on science, I take it.
No.
Okay.
I was much more focused on sports.
Okay.
Baseball and basketball, and did it full time. That's all I just lived and breathed was to play baseball and really basketball. Basketball was my favorite sport.
What position did you play?
Well, depending on what year you're talking about. I was the center in my junior year, and then it was kind of a unique situation. This was back in the fall of 1956. Dover High School and Dover Booker T. Washington integrated in 1956.
Wow.
And Dover Booker T. Washington had a record of 30-1 the year before, and we were 24-6, and each team had one senior, so you took the 18 best players and put them together and picked out the best 10. And we had a really good basketball team.
That sounds pretty.
That's what my senior year, we went to state tournament, and then I ended up going to OSU and playing for Mr. Ivor.
Oh, you did. Well, we'll talk about that a little too. So that was a big shift. How did it impact the athletic part of the school? Sounds like the integration happening in 56.
Really, I think because of the basketball and the success that we had, there was absolutely no problems at all. Of course, I was growing up with most of those kids where I worked in the fields with them.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of watermelons growing at Dover. See, Dover's just north of the Cimarron River about 3 miles, and that's all sandy ground. And at one time there was probably 600 or 700 acres of watermelon being grown in Dover. And they formed what they call the Dover Watermelon Marketing Association. And we were shipping boxcar loads of watermelons to Kansas City and Chicago pretty well in the month of August. And so I worked in the field with most of those guys, so I knew them, so it really wasn't that big a deal. The only thing that I thought was noteworthy was about Thanksgiving, my senior year, there was a big black Cadillac pulled up outside. 4 black men in suits got out and came in there with an NAACP and wanted to make sure that the black children were being treated properly.
Mm-hmm.
But we really had no problems. And some of those guys are still my good friends.
That's great. Can you describe Dover, growing up in Dover?
Dover's very small, and now it's almost nothing, unfortunately. But growing up in Dover was great. It was just a small town, but there were 2 grocery stores and 2 cafes and a locker plant and a couple of filling stations. Population maybe 300 people.
No movie theater.
Oh no, you went to Kingfisher
Okay.
movie theater. Everybody in Kingfisher got where there were 9 high schools in the county at that time. And only Kingfisher and Hennessy had movie theaters, and basically everybody went to Kingfisher. And that was again a very unique situation growing up, because I knew almost all the kids in the county because we played basketball against them. And we saw them on Wednesday nights, and we dated some of the girls in some of the other towns and everything. It was a great. My high school, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And I think there's quite a Mennonite presence, isn't there, in Kingfisher?
No,
Right.
no.
Okay. Maybe that's a little further south.
Yeah, it'd be either south or then there's some up here in this area,
Mm-hmm.
this state.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we didn't. Kingfisher county was, how would I say this? Like Loyal and Omega were 2 small rural schools. Loyal used to be named Kiel because it was a German community.
Mm-hmm.
And during World War II, they changed their name to Loyal to show that they were loyal to the United States. And then OOHRP is a German Catholic community. Hennessy is basically a Bohemian Catholic community. So you had all these little ethnic groups around. It was pretty interesting.
And a Cheyenne Arapaho population down there too. Did both your parents go to college?
Neither.
Neither. But they encouraged you to continue your education.
Well, my dad was way smarter than I'll ever be. I know when I was a sophomore in college, we had a large greenhouse range in Oklahoma City. I went by there one evening and was talking to the gentleman who'd worked there 25 years at the greenhouses. And they had a coal-powered furnace that heated the thing in the wintertime. And I was talking to him, and my dad dropped out of school when he was in 8th grade, and they had a brick plant in Oklahoma City. And you'll see a lot of Kenyon bricks with the name Kenyon on them. They were paver bricks. And he said that my dad would go home at 5:30, eat supper with the family, put the kids to bed, and then come back to the nursery and study until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And he was much smarter than I was, I promise you. He was an engineer by his self-training, and he was somebody I was very proud of.
And kind of designed his own buildings too, sort of?
No, my uncle was an architect, but my dad basically, he designed and engineered irrigation systems and put in big systems all over the state.
Wow.
Along with the nursery.
Right. How did you end up choosing OSU?
Basketball.
Basketball, okay. And Mr. Iba.
Yeah.
So tell us about doing basketball at OSU.
I wasn't a very good player on the college level. I guess I had white man's disease. I couldn't jump very high, and I was a little bit slow. And our team, honestly, in the freshman class in 1956 was kind of the beginning of the end of the better teams that Mr. Iba had. The only thing significant about it was the first black player that Mr. Iba ever recruited was a freshman. Man, he was L.C. Gordon from Memphis, Tennessee, and L.C. and I were pretty close when we were at school.
What was it like practicing under Iba and playing under Iba?
Well, actually, since I was a freshman, Mr. Iba wasn't my direct coach, but we scrimmaged the varsity some.
Mm-hmm.
He was he's a wonderful person, but he was tough.
Just in terms of rigorous practice, or?
Oh, yes. I mean, like Thanksgiving vacation, you had 3 practices a day.
So you did not go home?
Oh, no. You hardly got out of the field house. But he knew what he wanted, and he demanded that, and he was a great coach, there's no doubt about that. But in my opinion, Mr. Iba's strength and abilities were offset when they started shooting the jump shot. His thing was defense first, low scoring games, and when you got these guys that could shoot these jump shots, you just couldn't defend them that way anymore. And that, I know when I was a freshman in high school, and I remember about 1955, we went to Norman to watch OU play Ohio State. And Ohio State had a player by the name of Robin Freeman. And then Furman University had a player by the name of Frank Selby. And they were the first 2 people to shoot jump shots in college. And I know we saw that game, and the next day everybody was out learning how to shoot a jump shot. And it changed basketball. I mean, and that's why I think Mr. Iba's way of ball. Defense is still important, but you couldn't dominate the game anymore with defense like they used to. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, what years were you at OSU again?
I was a freshman in the fall of '56 and graduated in '61. So I was there for 67, 58, 58, 59, 59, 60. Awful year. I graduated in the spring of '61.
Mm-hmm. And you right away knew you were going to major in horticulture?
No.
Okay.
I went to OSU to be a vet.
Interesting.
And was actually accepted for vet school. And Raymond Case, who was my advisor in agriculture, was the head of the horticulture department, and he was that because he knew of my background. And he convinced me finally that I needed to stay with my roots. And I'm glad I did, because I've got several close friends that I took a lot of the pre-vet courses with that are vets now, and I'm glad I didn't become a vet.
It's sort of high stress.
Well, if you don't have a partner, you don't have a life, because you're on call every weekend, and it's just a real tough deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a bull over to the vet clinic here about 3 weeks ago, and I was amazed that every person in the large animal clinic was a female. There was not a single male, either the practicing vets at the clinic or the students becoming large animal vets were all women.
That's been a big shift.
And I don't see how there's little bitty girls that are going to do some of the things that are required with large animals, but we'll see.
Well, who's a professor or two who stood out for you when you were at OSU in any of the classes?
Did what, excuse me?
Who's a professor or two who stood out for you?
Well, Raymond Case and Dick Payne probably was the most in horticulture. I learned so much from him. And, but there was you got to understand my background. There was a professor in chemistry. I went to Dover High School. I'd never looked in a microscope. I'd never taken any kind of a science course. I took 4 years of OAG and 4 years of English. That was half of my high school education. And so to say that I was a little bit over my head is an understatement. And I took that first chemistry course my first semester freshman year. I was playing basketball. And Dr. Webster, the first day of class, he said, everybody who has not had high school chemistry, hold up your hand. And there were probably 35 of us. That's how bad it was back then. And he just kind of grinned and said, well, he said, those of you that have had high school chemistry, he said, just kind of sit back and relax. And he said, for the next 3 to 4 weeks, said, you're going to get a real quick review of your high school chemistry. And said, and for those rest of you all, said, if you think you're going to pass this course, he said that we were going to have help sessions on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And he did. I mean, he did it, and he just took us by the hand and led us through. And if it hadn't been for him, I probably would have never made it in school. So, very grateful to him.
Right. What buildings did you have your classes in?
What buildings? Oh, a little bit of everything. Botany building, classroom building. What was that old building? It was over by the fire station. That's where I had English. You had to walk there. I had a class in the meat lab, which was on the northwest side of the campus, and that was on the southeast campus. I had 10 minutes to walk there, so I always remember that. But I took English there, but most of my work in botany and the agriculture building, where agronomy and horticulture courses were taught. And then you might get chemistry or something in the classroom building.
What was the environment on campus outside of your program?
It was good. Enrollment was about 9,800. You spoke to everybody you met on campus. You looked them in the eye, now they're staring down and walking by people. And it was a wonderful environment. I feel like that the strength of Oklahoma State is still the student body, because the student body comes from the rural areas, and these kids are just a little bit better off than these city kids, unfortunately.
They're very good, nice students, yeah. Where did you live on campus, or did you live on campus?
Well, I lived in the Jock during my freshman year, which was West Bennett at that time, and then I lived in Cordell Hall my sophomore year, and I got married between my sophomore junior year, and we lived in married student housing.
Did you have to work while you were going to school?
I basically, I think they allowed us to work 24 hours, and I always worked at the hort department in the greenhouses.
Oh, kind of a work study. Yeah. What did that experience provide you with?
Well, it just gave us more background, things that we were going to be using later on, especially with Dr. Payne. I did a lot of things with him on plant nutrition and soil mixes and things like that, and some with insect and disease control. And all of this stuff related, that's how I made my living. So it was extremely helpful, and the money was needed.
Right. How often did you go home?
I went home quite a bit. It was 55 minutes from Stillwater to Dover, and I'd go home at least a couple of times a month.
You had a car?
Yeah, I had a car. And I wasn't in a fraternity. I played basketball my freshman year, and so I didn't ever join a fraternity. And Wes Watkins and I were big buddies, and we always told people that we were belonged to Gamma Delta Iota, goddamn independence.
That's great. I thought I understood you were on the track team though briefly. Were you on the OSU track team? Okay. That is wrong. So tell me about meeting your wife. Where and how did you guys meet?
My first wife was my high school sweetheart. We met in high school, and when she graduated from high school, we got married.
Did she also go to OSU for a while?
No, she was one helping push me through. She worked while I was there. And the same thing in graduate school when we went to Iowa State.
Now, I know you're a big football fan now, but were you going to the games as a student?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't think one of the things I became, I had never seen a wrestling match until I came to OSU. And I became a huge wrestling fan. I hardly ever missed any athletic event. Baseball games, football games, men's basketball games, and wrestling. I went to all of those, and then I played intramural sports a lot.
What was the policy in terms of tickets for students at that time?
Well, then, like a wrestling match, they'd open the gates 45 minutes before the match. And it would just fill up. Then it was Gallagher Hall. And there would be anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 people at a wrestling match.
Wow.
And I know I think my sophomore year, my and Roger was the coach, and we had a great team of them. I think the Big 8 tournament was held at Gallagher that year. And if I remember right, we won all 10 weights in the Big 8 conference that year. Wrestling was great. I've been to a lot of really unique wrestling matches. I was there the night that they busted light bulbs in the Big 8 tournament there.
Tell us a little more about that.
I can't remember all the names, but Iowa State had an undefeated 191 pounder. We had Jimmy Jackson as our heavyweight. No one was going to beat him. So it really came down to whoever won the 191 pound was going to win the Big 12 tournament, or Big 8 tournament at that time. And it was real crowded. I knew Pat Quinn real well, and Pat told me later that he was involved in getting things set up, and right before the matches started, it was so full that the fire inspector came by and told the PA announcer, he said, "You got to make some of these people leave before I'll allow this match to start." And the PA announcer just looked at him in the mic and said, "You tell him." And he didn't do it. And it was just, everybody sitting in the aisles, it was just, you couldn't have gotten another person in there at all. And when this kid that was 177 pounder had moved up, for OSU and beat this boy. It just, well, it actually knocked the radio off
Wow.
for about 3 minutes and busted light bulbs.
The explosion of
But just from the noise.
noise.
So,
That is a great story. What do you recall about any campus tradition?
well, there were a lot of them. Back then, anybody who started going steady or got pinned or got engaged, the guys took them over, took their pants off and threw them in Theta Pond. And then the sorority house right across from Theta Pond had a little cupola around the front door, and you'd throw their pants up on top of that. And then you'd have to go ring the doorbell, and they'd make you sing a song before they'd give you back your pants. that was one of the traditions that I remember. But
But lucky you didn't have to go through that because you married your high school sweetheart.
well, but my freshman, sophomore year, I was there. Yeah, I got thrown Theta. I guess it's a felony now. Things have changed so much.
Right.
But used to, it was very common to get thrown in there.
Well, in that spirit, what about a prank that you remember?
I don't know whether I should tell this or not. But in my sophomore year in the spring, they had Western Week. And they had the Western Week dance on a Friday night, and it was on the 4th floor of the Student Union. And I had a buddy that lived across the hall from me in the dorm, and he was a rodeo clown. So we went and got his Brahma bull and took it up on the 4th floor of the Student Union and got caught. As we were going up in the elevator, the director of the Student Union got on the 2nd floor. He, I say this for he had nothing. He got on the elevator with us, and he said, she said, nobody's getting out on the 4th floor. We went right back down to the basement. And he took our IDs, and but it wasn't a big deal, you know. We had to go see the dean of men, and we were put on social probation. Well, I wasn't in fraternity or anything. Social probation didn't hurt me at all. But so the rumor that there was a blow up on the studio is true.
That's a pretty famous prank, I'll have to say. What was your favorite place on campus?
Well, probably Gallagher Hall. I mean, I really like that. And then probably the Student Union. I studied in the basement of the library. I learned that foreign graduate students had desks assigned to them. And I found out pretty quick there'd be one that I'd find somebody that didn't use it, and that was just my desk, and I studied in there.
And it was quiet there.
Oh yeah, it's a great place to study if you really want to study.
What activities did you do for fun?
Intramural sports. I played basketball, played softball, and played volleyball, and flag football, played everything. We had a group of guys that were athletes as freshmen that had dropped out. We had 4 or 5 all-stagers on our team and everything. We pretty well dominated for about 3 years. We won. We were called the Black Knights, and we were an independent one, which was the toughest level. We won basketball 2 years and softball 1 year. Never did win touch football. We got the finals. The fraternity team would usually beat us in that. And before we found out there's more to volleyball, and we realized we never could do any good at volleyball.
What were some popular places to hang out off campus?
You know, that's the one thing that I guess I was a bookworm, because I really didn't do much of that. The swims, which is now it used to be the Fox, and now it's the apartment. It just opened up about 3 weeks ago. It's a hamburger joint in a bar. That was a pool hall, and we'd go there and shoot pool stuff. And that was about the extent of my extracurricular activities.
So you mentioned memories of the library, Data Pond, student union. Did you play cards there too, or were you just...
No,
Okay.
I'm not much of a card player.
What are your memories of the town of Stillwater?
It was just kind of like a little agricultural center that happened to have a university in it. I mean, really, that's about it. It was a nice town to be in, but, you know, back then there wasn't really a whole lot to do. The student union was really the kind of the center of all the activity back then. Kids would go up on the fourth floor of the student union, and even between classes and dance, then the jitterbug was the main dance and everything. There was a lot of activity up on the fourth floor of the student union at that time.
Did you do that after you were married? Go up there and dance?
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah. What are your memories of graduation day?
Relief. I mean, you know, I already knew. In fact, I left just a matter of a few days after graduation. Went to Ames, Iowa, for graduate school. So it was really just a whole lot of stuff going on, trying to get organized to get out of town.
Yeah, so you really had no break between undergrad and graduate.
No.
What was that experience like at Ames?
I about froze to death. I went there because of John Malstead, who it was kind of turned out to be a little bit unfortunate. He was probably the leading horticultural nursery production person in the nation. And so I had a chance to go to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and in California, the University of Hawaii, were two that I was considering, but I went because of Malstead. And on my trip to Ames from Oklahoma, the head of the horticulture department had a heart attack and passed away, and they made Malstead department head. So therefore, I didn't get near as much interaction with him as I originally hoped for. Apparently, but it's still a good deal. I got it. It's a good school, but the housing, married student housing up there, it's called panel courts. They were World War II prisoner of war barracks that Iowa State bought from the federal government for $1. Put them on concrete slabs, and they had corrugated metal roof and side walls, interior walls of plywood with no insulation. And you had a coal oil stove that sat in the middle to heat the whole thing. And as a graduate student, you couldn't afford to run it all night long, so you shut it down when you went to bed and turned it on the next morning. And it was cold.
Yeah.
it was miserable.
Can't imagine. How did your folks feel about you going on to graduate school?
Oh no, my dad was very much in favor of it.
Once you finished, what happened?
Graduate school. Well, I got out of graduate school and I went to Manhattan, Kansas, and worked as an extension horticulturist for the whole state of Kansas. And just out of school, you talk about learning a lot of things. I did learn a lot. One of the extension entomologists, the extension pathologists, and the extension horticulturists, we traveled together and go and talk to these groups of ladies about horticulture. And I found out real quick that in every town there was one little old lady that knew everything in the world about one thing. And she was just dying to show how smart she was and trap you. So I learned real quick that if somebody asked me a question I didn't know the answer to, I didn't try to bluff my way. I just said, ma'am, I don't know, but I can find out for you. But it was I just did that about a year. But it was a good experience. I went to Wichita every Thursday night, and on Friday morning at 6 o'clock I was on the farm show and gave a little program each week for something about horticulture, home horticulture shearing.
In Wichita?
Yeah, in Wichita. And then, other than that,
So I'm surprised the women that they were your audience. So they were kind of homemakers that were the audience,
Yeah.
as opposed
and
to
garden club.
farmers.
Garden
Okay,
clubs
just
and
more.
stuff, but
Yeah.
there'd be groups all over Kansas we'd go, and there'd be a large group that we'd go, and it basically would be ladies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I left there and came back to Oklahoma State in fall of '63. And Raymond Cage was still the head of the hort department. And I had my office next to Dick Payne, who'd been my major professor there and everything, and was there until February 1 of '66. And at that time I came to work at Greenleaf.
What was it like to go back and, have that graduate degree and be working alongside your former professors?
Well, working with the professors was good. They helped me a lot, and it was a good deal. But there were students there that I went to school with that were there working on graduate degrees, and they took all my courses. And you talk about somebody giving someone a critique. If I made one mistake, man, that'd all be on me. It was very interesting. I had to grow up pretty quick on that. I know I got in there about the middle of August, and I went in to see Professor Case, and I said, well, what am I going to teach? And he said, well, you're going to teach nursery production. And I said, I didn't take a nursery production course. I don't remember one. He says, well, there isn't one. You're gonna be the one who's gonna do it. So it was just like taking a test every day. I had to prepare a lecture 3 times a week from scratch. There was nothing, with that. The second year it was easier.
No textbooks, no, yeah.
But that was the fun part. There was a guy who became the extension pecan. There was a student there named Glenn Taylor. They called him Cat Taylor, and Cat was known for being on the 4th floor of the student union. He wore boots, a great big hat with a big feather sticking out of his hat. And he'd whoop and holler and dance and everything. Well, I walked in there for my first day of class in that nursery production course, and Glenn was sitting at the back of the room. And I just went back and sat down by him. He didn't know who the professor was. He said, who's teaching this course? And I said, I don't know. I said, I heard he's pretty tough. We just sat there and let everybody come in, and then I got up and walked up in front of him and started calling roll. He was back there shaking his head, laughing and everything. But it was interesting.
That's neat. Why did you decide to leave OSU?
Oh, part of it was just basic philosophy. I'm a relatively high energy person, and university research life moved at a snail's pace compared to what I wanted to do. And then the fact that horticulture was a minor department, and basically if it wasn't beef or wheat, which is animal science and agronomy, it really wasn't very important to the dean at that time. So I'd always had this interest in the nursery anyway, and so when I got the opportunity to take the job, Burr Ross was the dean of agriculture at the time, and he invited me over to his office and wanted to know why I hadn't given him an opportunity to try to keep them. And I said, well, Burr, nothing negative towards you or the university, but I said, when I want to dig a hole, I want to get a shovel and dig a hole. I don't want to file something and triplicate and wait 6 weeks to get the damn shovel. And I said, I'm just not university. I love teaching, but I didn't like all of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And was there a reason that you didn't go back and work for your dad?
Yes, very simple. My dad wanted me to go back, and we had a nursery there. He wanted me to enlarge it. But my dad's operations in Dover, Oklahoma, which is in the western part of the state, and you were doing good to get one person to operate a tractor over there. And what I had in mind, we were going to need several hundred employees. So it had to be in a different place.
You had ambitions of building a nursery kind of operation already.
Excuse me?
You had ambitions to build a nursery
Yes.
operation.
Yes, I had a vision of what I wanted to be involved with, and John and Gil Nickel, who were my partners, John, well, it's kind of interesting. In 1958, when I was a sophomore, Professor K took a group of us over to this part of the state on a field trip. We went over to Stillwater Foods, which is a big canning factory over there. Went to OOHRP Nursery, which is in Tahlequah, and then we went down to this little container operation that was just starting up on Greenleaf, on Lake Tenkiller, and that was run by John Nickel. And this is kind of emotional to me, I apologize. John said at the time, you know, I was a sophomore in college, and this was the first year he planted a crop there. The nursery was just starting. And he said, he made a mental note to himself that if he ever had the chance, he was going to hire me. Because he said I asked all the right questions that I kind of understood. And then I went to graduate school. Well, then, when I came back to OSU in '63, John's brother Gil, who had graduated from OSU in same year I did, but he was in physics. I didn't know him, never met him or anything. He went out and worked for the federal government plotting missiles in California at some rocket deal out there. Well, he came back to work with John at the nursery at the same time I came back to work at Greenleaf. So the first thing I did, because my dad was in the nursery business and I basically knew all the nurseries, I went around and introduced myself and told them that I was getting ready to start doing research in nursery production, and I'd rather work on real problems than imaginary ones, so if they had any problems, let me know and I'd work with them. And I knew John from that earlier visit, and but I never met Gil. And when I told John that, John said, well, come here. He said, I want to introduce you to a problem. And that was Gil. And then 3 years later, I went to work for him. And this February 1st, it'll be 50 years.
Wow.
And the Nickel family is very unique. Gil, he left and started wineries in California. He's unfortunately, Gil deceased. He passed away from cancer several years ago. But he developed two of the best wineries in Napa Valley. Mm-hmm. And that was just an Okie and Muskogee with no background.
Well, can you explain the importance of Greenleaf Nurseries for us?
Well, it's now a large suit. Greenleaf's got 3 divisions, well actually 4 divisions. The Oklahoma division was the original, and then we put in the Texas division, which is southwest of Houston, about 65 miles. It's straight north of Palacios, Texas. It's 26 miles off the Gulf Coast. And there's a reason for that. You've got to be at least 25 miles inland so that the hurricane can't put salt water on your crop. Mm. Then we put a nursery in at Tarboro, North Carolina, and it's about 40 miles inland from the Atlantic Ocean. So, and then we have one of the last things we did, we put in a tree production area. It's the only thing we grow in the soil is we grow trees where we can bud them and have all the different varieties of trees. And that site grows plants for all 3 nurseries that we ship right there and put them in containers and grow them for 1 year or 2 years until they're sold.
So are you saying the other plants are grown in kind of aquaculture stuff?
Well, they're grown in a synthetic soil mix, yes.
I see.
That's something that's part of our strength. We designed our own soil mix. Mm-hmm. And actually there's 3 different mixes to fit different types of plants and everything. But you can say that the advantages and the disadvantages of a container nursery are the same. The advantage is that you can control every aspect that affects growth, and if you do it right, you can do a real good job, and if you do it wrong, the plant will die.
Mm.
So it's a very precise. I would hate to go back and start from scratch what was developed over 50 years, because it's very, very complex. We have a lot of really good production people that got degrees in horticulture that have been with us 20, 25 years. They do an unbelievable job. But the important, in each one of the communities that in, we work a lot of people. And so we're definitely an economic factor to that point. And nationally, we're probably the largest wholesale container nursery in the nation now. We ship into 38 states and have 27 salesmen that work for us full time on the road.
And how many different kinds of plants, roughly?
Several thousand.
Wow.
I mean, we grow a complete line of woody ornamental trees and shrubs, plus we grow a lot of perennials and annuals. We also sell along with the crop. In our Texas nursery courses, we grow tropicals down there along with that. And the Texas nursery was put in because we could grow azaleas and all your different broadleaf evergreens in half the time we can grow them up here. One growing season down there because the growing season is longer and better. And so the Texas nursery, but it was located kind of in a triangle between San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. And that in itself is a huge market. Plus, it grows a lot of plants that come up to Oklahoma and then shifted out with this crop for that. And then the nursery in Tarboro, North Carolina is right on I-70, just up the road a short ways is Boston, New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, everything, the northeastern population. And that's what that nursery is for, is to serve that. And it's getting big enough now that it's starting to impact the Oklahoma nursery. We've had to kind of shift. We used to ship to the northeast out here. And now then we're shifting more into the Midwest, and Chicago and that area, and Ohio and Minnesota and all that. So we've changed our crop mix somewhat. But the three of them together do a real good job of covering the states from the Rocky Mountains east, with the exception of Florida. Florida's a very unique market. You can't compete with them because there's all these little bitty mom and pop operations. They're all over the place, and they'll deliver free, and they can grow the plants so easy, and it's such a benevolent climate down there that we just kind of act like Florida isn't down there. But it's the states from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas east, with a little bit in New Mexico and a little bit in Utah. But our big competition used to be in California. Big nurseries do a real good job. So for us to go over the Rockies and compete with them when they had the freight advantage, we couldn't do it. But now then, with increases in trucking and fuel prices and everything, they really have a hard time competing with us on this side of the Rockies. So there are other good nurseries on the eastern half of the Rockies, but I'll be biased and say we're the biggest and the best.
Right. What do you consider your biggest success then at Greenleaf?
Just the overall success.
Expansion.
I mean, our expansion was unbelievable. It's changed so much. When we started out, our big challenge was to grow plants. And we perfected all sorts of different techniques to make them more efficient, less expensive, better quality, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You were appointed to the Board of Regents at OSU at one point. Were you surprised?
Yes, I was surprised. I had no idea of the involvement or anything. They laughingly tell you that it's gonna take one day a month. That's the biggest fallacy that's you've ever seen. But I enjoyed my time on the board a lot, although I was a little bit amused at my ignorance. Like when I was appointed, well, then I got a call from the senator here. He said, well, I understand you're being appointed to the Board of Regents. I said, that's what they tell me. He said, do you realize that you got to have my approval? And I said, I had no idea. And I'm just not very political. I love Oklahoma State, and I tried very diligently to make decisions that were best for the university. I didn't have any agenda. I didn't have any political thing. I know one time, I won't say what governor it was, but one of the governor's staff members called me. We were going to have a meeting on Friday, and he said, now, this issue is coming up for a vote on Friday, says, and we expect your vote. And I'm known to be rather blunt. And I said, you know, I'm kind of funny. I said, I will vote on this issue after I decide what is best for the university. And I said, and secondly, I don't like people telling me what to do, and I would suggest you not call me again. And hung up. I never heard from him again.
That's wonderful. In 2003, you were the Distinguished Alumnus Honoree. What was that like?
It was just a very nice honor. I mean, I'm not saying I'm deserving of it, but I was pleasantly surprised. And my partner, Gil Nickel, went in the same group, which was real nice. He was from California and I was from Oklahoma. But so that made it also. And Gil also was sick at that time, so we were. I was real glad to see him.
Made it special. I understand you're in Stillwater quite a bit, especially during football season.
Well, I'm in Stillwater quite a bit during athletic season, which is a year round. This is my 53rd year, consecutive year to have football tickets. And I've had basketball tickets since we changed coaches and hired Leonard Hamilton, which man was going to be that was the upswing of our basketball program. And then when Eddie came in, we really did well. I got out of the board meeting when we hired Leonard, walked across the campus, went in to see the ticket agent, and I said, I want 4 tickets on the second row. We just redone the inside of Gallagher, and they had those seats down on the floor. I said, I want 4 seats across the court from the bench on the second row. And they said, well, Reggie Kenyon, you don't have any problem getting tickets. And I said, ma'am, you don't understand. I said, in a few years, basketball tickets are going to be very hard to get. And I said, I won't be on the board at that time. I said, I want these tickets in my name, I'm paying for them, and I still got them.
That was really prescient of you, foresighted. So, speaking of just another area you're in, I guess it's, you raise Brangus cattle?
Yes,
Is
I
that,
do.
how many do you have and how long have you been raising them?
I've been raising Brangus cattle for 35 years, I guess. I was real big into registered Brangus for a number of years. And when I got out, some people said, how come you're getting out of the registered business? I said, because I'm tired of the paperwork and the politics. And I'm raising probably better cattle now than I used to, because with the registered cattle, they're more expensive. And if you go out and pay $10,000 for a cow and she doesn't breed, well, you'll give her another chance. If these out here, if they don't breed, they learn the McDonald's song. They got to raise the calf and breed back every year, because that's the only way you can make money with it. But Betsy and I were very, very active in the Brangus Association for 15 years or so. And I was on the IVBA board of directors and very active and enjoyed a lot of wonderful people. It really still got a lot of good friends that I met in the Brangus business.
So how did attending OSU and earning your degree impact your life?
That's a hard question. It just totally turned my life around. I mean, it gave me the training and the background, and I already knew what I wanted to do by the time I graduated, and I wanted to be in the nursery business. And even though I got into education to start out, excuse me, I knew pretty quick that this isn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life. But the background, educational background I got in the basic sciences allowed me to really excel in growing plants. And that's something that I'm very, very grateful for to the university, and I try to show up any way that I can.
Are you connected to the other Cowboys in Tahlequah? Do you kind of know each other?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of us. The nursery out there, we have lots of OSU graduates out there because, you know, we need horticulture graduates. We've got some K-State and some Texas A&M, but we got a large number of ag majors.
Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about your Tahlequah? What should a person see or experience here in Tahlequah?
Excuse me?
What should a person see or experience here in Tahlequah?
Well, Tahlequah's got two main things that have helped it in spite of the people, and that's the Illinois River and Lake Tenkill. And so the tourism factor is extremely big. The fact that Tahlequah is the home of the Cherokee Nation is another thing, but they're making so much money off the gambling casinos now. I'm not sure it's that good a deal, but it's just something we have to put up with. But Tahlequah is a nice town to live in. You know, Northeastern State's a nice sized university, and just I learned when I was on the Board of Regents, when you're around these young kids, they'll vitalize you. They'll make you feel younger just being around them. And it's the same way here.
And I understand two of your daughters attended OSU?
Yes, both of them graduated, and then I've got two grandchildren who are in school now.
Oh.
One is a senior and one is a sophomore.
Great. You can hook up with them when you go to sports events.
We bought a home this last October, a small home in Stillwater that Bessie refers to as our game day house. Because we go to every basketball game, and it's getting more difficult. I'm not very pleased with the program right now, but I'm getting too old to drive back at night after every basketball game, so we got where we can spend the night and come home the next day. So it's been a real good deal. We're glad we did it.
Well, I noticed OSU sign for OSU Avenue when I pulled in here.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to students at OSU today?
Well, they've got a real tough future ahead of them. I mean, I'm not very political, but I'm not very impressed with our political leadership right now. And the debt that our federal government is getting into is going to be a real challenge for them. These kids are so much more talented than I was when I was a freshman. I mean, they're going to do well, but they're going to have to work harder than we did to be successful, just because of all the governmental challenges and all of that.
What advice would you give to faculty or administrators?
I think that a big part of the faculty is doing a great job. I think that our president's the best president that we've probably had in the history of the university. I think he and his wife are just such a good feel about him. Mm-hmm. The kids love his wife, and they're just really good. I think he's really, really done a great job over there. If I shouldn't say this, but when I was on the Board of Regents, about the second meeting I went to, the faculty council, invited me over for a session, and they were asking me about my feeling on merit pay, and I said I'm all for merit pay, and I said I'll gladly champion that effort for you. I said with just a few adjustments and a few things. They were getting all excited. Finally, one of them said, "Well, what kind of adjustments are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, the first thing we need to do is get rid of tenure." Well, that didn't go over very well. But that's, to me, in education period, the biggest problem we've got is tenure. Because I know when I talked to Brother Ross when I was leaving the university, he said, "You realize you'll qualify for tenure next year?" And I said, "Brother," I said, "if I gotta have tenure to keep my job," I said, "I don't want it." And I said, "What's wrong with this university right now is I've never seen so many guys in their early 40s that have already shut down." Because my feeling is, I think what they think is if they don't do anything wrong, they can't get fired. If they don't do anything, they won't do anything wrong. And I said, that's not all of them, but that's some of them. And I said, those people need to be replaced. But education's a tough deal. Oklahoma's in a real tough situation economically right now. I don't know whether it's a lack of leadership or a lack of money, but we have a problem in our county.
What is it about Oklahoma State that sparks such loyalty, do you think?
The people, the student body. I mean, it was that way in 1957, it's that way now. The kids are just a great group of kids. And you go over for homecoming or go over for some of these things and just be around them. I think that's the strength of the university is the area that we draw our students from.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to add?
Not really. I mean, I can just say that I'm very glad that I'm an OSU alum, and I'm very grateful for what the university's done for me. And I try in any way that I can to pay them back.
Can I just ask as a final question, what is your favorite plant?
What is my favorite? That's actually easy. It's a willow oak. It's a tree. You see all those trees out there in the pasture?
Yeah.
We had some diseases come through and kill a lot of the native oaks, especially the red oaks. And so I was having to plant trees back so I'll have shade in there. And this willow oak is an unbelievable plant, and I think it's very much underused.
It's got a pretty shape to it.
Yeah, it's got a nice shape. It's called a willow oak because the leaf is shaped like a willow. It's very narrow, not very big, so it's not messy at all. There's no foliage that you have to break up or anything. It grows extremely fast, and it's long-lived. Most fast-growing trees are brittle and fall apart. This one doesn't. So it's a good tree.
Well,
it's a joke out of the nursery because I'm always pushing willow oak.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Austin.